Nazish, and very, very good evening to the viewers in Pakistan.
Good
Uh,
morning or good evening.
we welcome you because we'll have the viewers from Pakistan as well as from USA and other countries as well. So, we welcome you to our show. And before we start, we are thankful that you took our town because it's early morning there. Uh, we will start with your introduction, Nazish. That where were you born, and then how did this journey start?
Well, the journey started, I was born in Karachi in Pakistan, and I think I was born to parents who encouraged female independence. And which was at that time, I was born in 1968, so at that time it was quite rare, but both my parents believed that women needed to be independent. And my father always said, you won't get any other inheritance except an excellent education. And I'm glad that he wanted to invest in our education, both me and my sister and my brother. And we learned the value of hard work as young kids, both from my mother, who was very active in different causes, and from my father, who was a teacher. He was the registrar of the University of Karachi, and worked with Montessori school system. He had his own publishing company for a while. So we learned very young the importance of being independent. And then I left for France when I was 18 years old. I had a scholarship to study fine arts, and the importance of being an independent woman with it was just very obvious to me.
Wow, that's great. So, uh, you studied, you had a birth in Pakistan. Then, how did you move to USA? What was it all about?
Well, a lot of it is always the fault of our husbands. So my husband was is a worked for Estee Lauder, they transferred him to. So we kind of, both of us both met while I was working in Paris and L'Oreal. I was marketing director for a worldwide brand, and he was responsible for South America. And we met. That's how we met. And we lived for a while in Brazil and Argentina and different countries. And sometimes I moved because of him, and sometimes he moved because of my career. So we're both very balanced in our relationship. And this time the move seemed good because our kids both are going to college. And for the last 2 years, we thought, okay, let's move to the United States because they've been in American schools all their lives, and just to do their junior and their senior year sounds great. And for so we moved here, and we actually really loved living in New York. And now because my company and our company in France is growing a lot, we decided just this month that we're going to be moving back to Paris, because I need to be there, and my husband is actually also going to be working with me. So we're very happy because the momentum of the company, because it's a very organic and natural and safe product line. It's with COVID, with everything that's going on, I think it's the perfect time for consumers are more interested in really healthy choices. We're trying to eat more healthier. We're trying to have healthier lifestyles. Well, we also want to apply on our face and on hair, on our body, healthier products.
Very true, very true. We'll definitely come to know about your, business and your products and all at the, part of that women entrepreneurship. I would like to start with the women empowerment. See,
Yeah.
this is something very broad term. How do you see it, women empowerment?
Female impact. Well, this society, our world, our universe is made for men. So on top of the totem pole, you have a white European man, and it goes down from there. And pretty much right at the bottom of the totem pole are people of color, and especially women. Right. So this is the playing field that we have. Within this, if you see, female empowerment for me means treating men and women not as the same necessarily, but equal. partners. When we, women are very capable, but when women are not kept, when women are kept in a corner, when women are not allowed to work if they want to, or I don't have any problem with women who don't work because they don't want to work. That's their choice. But the fact is that I've also worked a lot in associations and companies which deal with, nonprofits which deal with domestic violence. And invariably, domestic violence happens because a woman does not have financial independence. And that is something that I feel very strongly about. I think it's a defense. It's a way to defend her position. And we see that in countries across the world, whenever the female workforce adds a lot. When you have women working, the economy is better. Companies are healthier. Corporations which have more women in there have been proven, not more women, but a balanced amount of women and men, and all the other genders. You see a healthier work environment. So those are things which, I think women should have the choice in everything that they want to do, whether it's to work or not to work, and all other aspects.
Very true, very true. And even we see that, the self and, sorry, the finance dependence makes women somehow weak around the world. Wherever we see the women as financially strong, financially independent, we see that they are a lot powerful. They have, approach with the rights. They are quite, stable. And when we talk about the third world countries, or you may call the developing countries, there's a big issue of women empowerment, women rights. How do you see it as a Pakistani American? How do you see that, that why is it so?
Well, I think traditionally women have always been kept down, for different reasons, and one of them is something we are talking a lot about, is called toxic masculinity, because men have been. I think the people who sometimes I come to the conclusion that I think actually the people who are really suffering are men, because they have to keep they have the pressure of society to be a male, and they can't talk about their emotions. They can't say that I'm not feeling good, or I'm afraid of something, because that's not the stereotype that's set out there. And because of that, because they can't admit to their weaknesses, which would be a very healthy thing to be able to do, they try to push other people down, and that's women in general. And so women have to bear the brunt of a frustration that comes from men who've created the society based for men. Now, coming to Pakistan, I left the country a long time ago, but after almost 20 years, I returned last year. And I saw that things were in a better place than they were when I left, because when I left, virtually no women were working, and the ones who were had to deal with a lot of stress. And so I think last time when I saw there were a lot of women-led initiatives, a lot of female, a lot more. There's a long ways to go, but even in the United States, even in Europe, there's a long ways to go. I mean, we're still not, and I don't understand why even in so-called developed countries, we are not at the same salary for men and women. We still have salary disparities. We still have all kinds of pressure on women, which we don't have on men. Like somebody said, a man is accepted for who he is. A woman has to prove herself, and that's very true. You join a company, and as a woman, you are judged based on your results. As a man, you are based on what you bring, right? So those are things that I think are common the world over. Now, specifically in Pakistan, it's a society that's traditionally and culturally wanted to keep women in a specific position, even though that is not really what the religion itself teaches. Because even the religion teaches us, even the Islamic religion teaches us that the Prophet's wife was a businesswoman. and she was a powerful businesswoman. So, even with religious examples, there has always been a desire to keep a woman in her place. So I think the movement has to be on both sides. I think women have to ask and demand equal rights, and men who are enlightened and who understand that for the betterment of the entire society, they have to work with women. They have to encourage this. The oppressor has to make the difference. The oppressed will fight for it, but until the oppressor is convinced of the change, it's not going to work. It has to be there has to be an equal partnership and realization amongst the society that this is an important step for the economic well-being of the country.
Very true, Nazish. This is something really very important. And I would like to know more about that, how we can empower the women. See, the one thing is that financial stability, financial strength. What else is needed so a women can be empowered?
Well, I think you have to start with education. I think you have to first start with education and, giving women the opportunity to learn, to go to schools without having acid thrown on them, or, go to college. And that we start off with basic education. Then I think it goes on to supporting women-led initiatives, banks giving credit to women. If you look at even in the United States or the worldwide, investors tend to give, even though it's proven that women-led companies do statistically better, investors are giving more money to men, and that's just a statistical fact. And so, without capital, you can't start your own business. So those are things I think, but for me, it starts first of all with the empowerment starts with recognizing that investment needs to be made in education. And then a woman, I'm a mother, I have 2 kids, and I was lucky because my husband believes in financial independence for women. So we shared responsibilities. We both had demanding jobs and we both used to travel, but we used to make it so that, okay, when he was gone, then I was at home. When I was gone, he was at home. We always had one of us was taking care of the kids, and there was and you need to have this balance with your partner. I don't believe that you need, a successful career woman has to give up her kids. That's you can have both if both parties share, having appropriate childcare, making sure that the structure, that even that society accepts a woman working without judging her. Like the amount of times when I was away working or had to travel for work, and some women would tell me, oh, so you're leaving your kids, trying to give you a guilty complex, which I think is not very healthy. And for the kids, it was actually, I think, much better that I was working, because had I been at home all the time on top of them, that would have been like really bad for them. They're very independent children, and teenagers now, but they're very independent. They're doing their own thing. My son is working on a political campaign. He's only 18 years old. My daughter started a candle business she's making candles and selling to help people who are in jail right now in the United States because of the protests that are happening. So those are things that they did 100% on their own. I have no interference in there. And because I think that they saw their parents were both working, and I think that's the best present that I could have given them. So again, I think for those women who want to work, and I have examples with women who stayed at home and examples with women who went to work, and I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but having the freedom of choice, and what is better is when a husband and a wife, or partners in a couple that have kids, show the kids that this is a mutual decision. It's not one imposing a decision on the other, that this is a decision that respects the rights and the wishes of both. And that's, I think, the most important learning to give even to our society.
Wonderful, wonderful, really. And just setting an example is always something really amazing for the rest of the people, and you're really doing wonderful. Now, this I would like to listen because you're doing a lot of, political efforts, political struggles. You're trying to contribute. Even you just told that your son is also doing it right now, whatever is going on there in America. Uh, the political empowerment of the women. How important is the political empowerment of the women?
If you're not represented politically, how are you being defended? I think how can you make real change comes about because of protests and demonstrations, but also because of policy changes and changes in laws. And that's, I mean, I was not very political. In fact, I kept away from it because I worked more on causes than on political campaigns. And that changed for the first time. I'm a French citizen today. That changed for the first time with the election of Emmanuel Macron. Because I worked on his campaign because I liked what he was saying. It was the first time that somebody was talking about inclusion instead of I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican or I'm a leftist or I'm a rightist. Somebody was saying, hey, we're all in this together. These are the causes that we need to fight. That was a language that I could understand, and so that was my first in political engagement. And since then, I've worked in the United States on the political campaign of a friend, also a woman that I met and who became a friend in my local community. And I joined a group called the Westchester Women's Agenda, which is a group, a lobby group for nonprofits. So I think there's about 100 and some members, all involved in different causes relating to the well-being of families and women, defending the cause of people of color, the immigrants, but all across the range. There's organizations that equal domestic violence. There's organizations that deal with female empowerment, business-wise. There's with immigrant rights. And with this group of women, I learned the importance of policy change. Like what they do is they take laws. They have a policy committee and they read the laws, and then laws are not perfect and we can change them if we have enough power to change them. So sometimes you say something and you do something, but then you discover, oh, actually in practice, once you've done this, it's not really working the way it was supposed to. And then you make an amendment to it. And too few people really look at that, at those details. And that's what we need to be doing is look at those details and make sure that the laws are just, because sometimes laws are not just. Make them just and make them enforced. So that's one of the things that I learned. And then because I lived in Brazil, I worked, I always had this social side, much more than a political side, more a social activist. And so I started a group in Brazil, from Brazil, that exists in Brazil. There's over 40,000 women in this group. And I started the French with a friend of mine. We started as co-leaders. We started the French group taking care of Brazilian immigrants in France, because the issue with immigrants is that you don't speak the language, you don't have family support, you don't understand how things work, and it's very easy to fall into a situation of abuse and violence. And so we started working with the Brazilian consulate, and we set up a group, and I think we helped in the first year that I was there over 800 women in the first year. And so then I moved to New York, so somebody else is doing that job, and it's still doing really well, I think. But I think if I have a lesson to give to people who tell me, what can I do? I'm just one person. I'm too small. There's nothing that I can do. It doesn't matter. I think one person can make a difference. All you have to do is get up and look for things, because things are happening all around. We see things happening on TV, on YouTube, on social media. But at some point you have to say, this cause is what matters to me. And the safety of women was initially the cause that motivated me most. And that's where everything starts. Domestic violence, men who commit domestic violence are often men across the board, whether they're white supremacists or terrorists of any other belief, oftentimes they have a history of domestic violence, because the first person that, if you are angry and you have anger issues and you can't control your anger, the first person that you're going to target is the person in your house who's not going to be able to defend herself. So it starts out from there, and then it becomes, when you find that just beating up on your wife isn't enough, then you go out and start killing more and more people. So everything kind of starts within the nucleus of the home. And so if we can treat these issues, if we can make women capable of resistance, of better education, I think we can change the entire society.
Really true and really wonderful. You explained it very well. And especially when we talk about the political empowerment, as you said, the rules or the laws are made to support the person, not to, on the basis of unjust. If we see that they are not just, they should be changed. And definitely, the equal presence of women in the political system can make a really nation strong. And those countries which are developed, they are trying to work on it. And right now the understanding of, as you said, that you came back to Pakistan after 20 years, so things are getting better. They are not the same as they may be 20 years back, but we need to do a lot. It is not something we say that is enough. A lot more is needed to be done for continuous efforts. Nazish, how do you see, you have been, culturally very much diversified, whereas Brazil, France, and then USA. So how do you see the cultural empowerment of women?
Okay, so let's see if I understood the question right. Like cultural empowerment, what do you mean exactly by that? Like in terms of, I'm not sure I got your question.
Right. My question is, see that in every society we have the culture, and
Okay.
in that culture, the culture should not be male dominated or a female dominated. It should be having a balance. So what I want to, yes, I want your comments on that, that how we can bring that balance as a women culturally empowered.
Well, as a common thread across, and I've lived in like, say, maybe 10, 12 countries, the common thread is that the world over, the society has been made for men. Like when cars, simple fact, when cars are when airbags are tested in cars, they're tested for men. So there's a lot more accidents that hurt women, not because women are worse drivers or in worse accidents, but because those airbags are just too big for women. Or medicine, it's tested on mainly men, and so the doses are mainly for men who have oftentimes a bigger body size, right? So the average, so it ends up hurting women across the board, no matter where you are. um, so but when I was very young, I must have been like, I don't know, maybe 12 or 13. I was having issues with understanding. There was a lot going on in Pakistan at the time. There was, martial law. There was all kinds of issues going on. And I talked to my father and I said, I don't understand. Why are people like saying other religions are bad? Why are people saying that other political parties are bad? Why are people saying, you know, race? Why are people? And my father said to me, the closer we are, the more we look for, the more that similarities we have between us, the more we look for differences. And if you have 99.9 things that unite you, you will look for that point one thing that differentiates you and focus all your energy on that. And I must have been like maybe 12 when he told me that, and I'm 52 today, and that has not left my head since then. And I always try across all the cultures, everywhere that I've worked and lived, to look for what unites me with people that I'm dealing with, instead of looking at what makes me different. And I've been, I've worked in so many different countries and so many different cultures, and I've always had I consider myself very successful in adapting to different cultures, and I think that's because of that teaching of my dad. Is look for what unites you. Stop looking at what divides you. And that's the advice, that if anybody was interested in going from culture to culture, is look at what unites you and make other people see what you have in common with them, instead of, without losing your, I mean, everybody knows that I'm not a white European woman with a white European history. People know who I am and what I represent, but they also see that there's things in me that are different, but a lot of things are the same. We have the same values. We believe in caring for our families. We believe in giving a healthy life to our children. We want to live in peace and with responsibility, take care of the environment, and make sure that people are not dying of hunger or in any part of the world. So, if you start looking and talking about that, I think it helps. It helps find the common connection wherever you are.
Very much right. Very much right. And definitely, we are a global family, and the world, when we see, we all are one. I can just tell you an example that many years back when I landed at the Manchester airport. So
Mm-hmm.
I was a teenager, and it was the first, you can say, international travel.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw the white people, roaming around everywhere. So the first thing I did when I was out of airport, I looked at the sky and I said, it's the same sky we are having in Pakistan. Then I looked at the people and I say that they are having the same kind of physical body except color, and they are having the same blood running in their veins. So somehow it gives you a lot of energy. It gives you that vision to see that how we are one, how we are the same kind of human beings. And then further, definitely it is a lot of, you can say, struggle, a lot of efforts, because the societal conditions are different in different countries. But end of the day, definitely many things are in common. And culturally, when we talk about the women empowerment, until we do not accept that women are equal part of the culture, we cannot have a balanced society. We cannot have that neutral kind of society. Now this we talk about the societal empowerment. Definitely, these are somehow, when you will see, they are interlinked, interconnected. When we talk about the societal empowerment of the women, in this society, women even have the bigger role than men. Many times, when I see myself, that the things how I am doing, how my family is doing. So I feel like women has really a bigger role, but still in society we need to work to make people realize that there should be societal empowerment of women. I would like to have comments from you, please.
Well, I think traditionally roles of women have not been as respected. I studied for, I don't know, I did an MBA, so I studied for until I was 22, 23, and then and that prepared me for my corporate job, right? So what but when somebody put my baby in my hand the first time, the nurse brought the baby in my hand, nobody prepared me for that. I didn't get any kind of an education for that, right? And the time I spent bringing up my children was not in any way it was considered, okay, that's your, that's your nature. That's biologically your maternal instinct will come out. And so that is not child caring, child taking, child bearing. Um, that's not given any kind of value, when probably it's the most difficult and the most time consuming job that I have had to do in my entire life. The most rewarding also, for sure, but it's also been incredibly difficult to bring up two kids, right? And because you want to do good, and you're like, okay, how would I, how, and a lot, every time you're like surprised by a situation. And and when it starts off from there, but then you see jobs which are not given value in society. Nurses are predominantly female, but they're not considered as important as, say, a doctor, right? And so those are, you have to start, like we have to start, but then something like COVID happens and you realize the importance of the medical staff, not just the doctors, but the nurses. They're equally important. Or when you talk about, when my son was very little and we were living in Rio, one day he said to me, Mom, so would you consider that my teacher is super important? And I said, yeah, she is. And he said, would you think that, she has the future of so many children in her hands? Do you think she's important? And I said, yes, I think she's very important. Without her partnership with me, we wouldn't, I wouldn't be as confident as I am today that we're giving you a good life. And he said, and you, Mom, you make shampoos and stuff, right? So they're not that essential, are they? As the job that you do is not as essential as what my teacher does. And I said, well, yes, I think you're right. It's that job is fundamental, and my job is not. If you don't buy one shampoo, you buy another. Okay. And he said, so why are you paid like 10 times more than my teacher? And I said, well, I don't know. Unfortunately that's society. And he was like maybe 8 years old when he asked me that question. So you have to sometimes look at how the value that we give. I'm seeing everyone here in the United States talking about clapping at 8:00 in the evening or whatever, like, oh, our health workers, amazing job, or but then when you talk about our teachers, are the women who work at the cash desk at the supermarkets, they're putting them the essential workers. But essential workers are predominantly female. And we give them a big hand clapping and everything, but we don't give them the salaries, we don't give them the prestige, we don't give them everything else. But they're the ones who make the system actually work. So we need to rethink about how we treat people who are in these essential jobs, and especially women. I think it's a question of of not taking people for granted and the jobs that they do for granted. But traditionally, you've had female-dominated jobs have been considered less important in our society. That's just that's the unfortunate fact. So we have to start changing our own minds about that. Also, we have to, when I was living in Brazil, there was a law, that was put out for people, for employees at home, like maids, cooks and maids, to give them social security and retirement benefits. And a lot of women that I knew, homeowners, were like, oh my God, this is a nightmare. How am I going to, But then you're like, well, that woman is also a homeowner. That woman who's working as a maid for you, she gets in the morning at 8:00 in the morning. She works until 7:00 in the night. And what happens when she retires? So yes, you have to contribute to that. You have to make sure that the people are treated fairly. You can have, domestic help is, I had a maid at home. Couldn't have done my career without her. I'm so indebted to her, and she's became part of her family. But being part of the family doesn't mean that we didn't, you have to pay for her retirement to make sure that when she's, or give her unemployment benefits, or give her social security payment, because you can say she's part of the family and say, okay, I don't do that, but you can't work like, you can't allow people to be exploited. So that's something that I think we can start thinking about. I don't know in Pakistan today if people who work at home have any kind of benefits, And it's a tough physical job. What happens when they're too old to work? Do people keep them on? What happens?
completely agree with you. And for the societal empowerment, all what you have spoken, it is needed. Or when we talk about Pakistan, sometimes it is really very sad to share that even the people who are working in different private companies, especially since that COVID-19,
Mhm.
thousands of people have lost their jobs who are even in what we call comparatively in the good jobs, then we have the maids working at home. So these kind of injustices need to be addressed. They need proper solution. They need proper kind of system to check on, to have a check and balance, so we can have a balanced kind of society. And very truly, as you said, that not only these house workers, uh, but even the people working in different kind of good multinational companies, they even don't have the proper rights of, so after the retirement they can enjoy whatever a government employee can enjoy. Nazish, I would like to listen your comments on the essential factors for empowerment. We see that empowerment brings the self-confidence. This is something very strong, that that once you have the self-confidence, you are there to boost yourself. You do not need every time somebody beside you to stand up and say, "Oh, yeah, yes, you can do it,"
It
because
helps also.
right? It does. Yeah, it definitely does help, no doubt. But when we talk about the independence, so independence means that we should be psychologically that much strong. We should have that much self-confidence that definitely, if somebody is doing to us, that is can be taken as a catalyst, but it should not be taken as the essential need that without that we cannot move ahead. Second thing, exposure. That we say that once a person has an exposure, can definitely, now you have an experience of living in 12 or 14 countries, so you can have a better exposure to talk about the women of Brazil, Argentina, USA, France, and all, because you have the better exposure and you can suggest the better kind of recommendation, recommend in the better way as well. A third thing, then definitely independence. See, once you have the self confidence, you have the exposure, so you feel like to be an independent person. I'd like to have the comments on all these factors.
Well, again, it starts from the base of it is education, and it starts at a very young age. I think it starts at home. If your parents are constantly putting you down, if your parents are treating you with, oh my, if the story at home is, yes, my little girl, you will one day, you'll marry a nice husband and he will take care of you, if that's the story, then it's not, you know that's where you if but if you so I think it starts with a base, which is a good education for you to feel that you're confident, because you need to have the tools to work, right? So it starts from there, and then I think it gives I sort of disagree with you about comments from other people, because I think a positive reinforcement of what you do helps, because what I've been doing this for 52 years, I'm not 100% confident all the time. I've learned over the course of my life that nothing happens if you don't make it happen. So, and that I've learned that failing is not an issue, because but it took me a while to get there, because we tend to project failure as something that, oh my god, you know you lose your job, you make a mistake, it's like the end of the world. But I've come to see life as you're in a room and there are a number of doors around, and you open the door, and all that happens is that there's another room with a number of doors, and if you don't like that room, you can just walk out and go to some other room. The only thing that's stopping you from opening a door and walking somewhere else, if you don't like the room that you're in, is yourself. So you just walk out, and there's no decision that I consider a bad decision, at least professionally, because it's always possible to change it. It's what you do after the decision that makes a difference. Like I decided that I was going to work for my own company, that I was going to invest money in this company, and I was going to work for my own company. Okay, somebody's could think that, oh, you had a career in multinationals, you should stay there. You were making 50 times more money than what you're making right now because the company is very small. But that's a choice. It's a choice. Now, maybe in 2 years, my company will be a disaster, and I'll say, "Oh shit!" But I can always go back and do something else, and maybe it'll be a huge success, and I'll be like, "Wow, why didn't I do this before?" So I think the secret to empowerment for me is synonymous with creativity. It's to trust yourself, to be creative, to find a solution. If you look at the glass half full all the time and you say, oh my God, what a disaster, and you drown in that half full glass because you're just like, oh my God, I can't do this, then you're not going to make it. But if you look at that glass and you say, okay, great, that I have that glass, it's half full, but at least I have water to drink if I'm thirsty, and you move forward. I think if you that's one of the things. And the other thing I have to say, I mean, for me personally, and this may not be true for everybody, but for me personally, what has been my biggest source of support, even like my husband's been like an amazing, he's been by my side, he's given me everything. But the thing that's helped me the most has been the women around, because nobody sees what a woman has to deal with as well as another woman. And I've been lucky that wherever I've lived, wherever I've been, I've had a group of women who thought like me and who supported me. And I get my energy from them. So have a network of people who support you. And honestly, sometimes, and I took a long time to get to this, but cut out people who are negative, who bring you negative energy. If you have a friend who's like constantly putting you down and who's, just tell her, I can't deal with this right now. I'm sorry. I need to have people who are positive around me. It doesn't mean being rude. It doesn't mean being nasty, but life is too short to waste time with people who bring you negative energy. Just focus, it's tough enough without added stuff. So just surround yourself with people who build you up. This doesn't mean having people who always agree with you, because there's a difference between having yes men and yes women around you. You have to be open to be challenged and to be questioned, because that's how you grow. But make sure that people who challenge you and who question you have your best interests at heart, and who do it constructively. And I think that I was lucky. I am lucky to have a very solid network of people who have my back. Because you're not strong all the time. Nobody is, and you have the right to fail. If you're not failing, it means you're not doing anything. You have to. We have in our society, when you're at school, if we start out very young, you fail a test, okay, it's a catastrophe. Oh my God, my daughter got a C. It's like, oh, disaster. She's, what, you couldn't have studied more. It's not a problem to fail. It's a problem if it's a problem if for 10 times you fail because of the same thing. But if you learn from your mistake and you go on to something else, it's a learning experience. And we need to start treating failure as a learning experience, an opportunity to do better, instead of something you have to be ashamed of it, so I would say to any woman who wants to be, or man even, who wants to be an entrepreneur, accept failure as something positive. Don't see it as a wall, see it as a stone that somebody put in front of you, but that you can stand on top to look higher. You know, it's about the mindset. It's about changing how we look at things and how we feel about things. And if you're hurt by comments, and if you're hurt, because that happens, people will say things that are not nice, or something will happen that you will, sometimes you even make screw up, you make mistakes. Sometimes, I mean, I've made so many mistakes and so many things that I said, oh my God, I wish I hadn't done that, or if I wish I'd thought of something else. Cut yourself a break. You're not perfect, and you can't be perfect. You just try your best, and that's, I think, what's the most important.
Definitely, definitely. Now, this is so amazing and really wonderful. And especially when we see that learning from our own mistakes, we start learning from Adam and Eve. That, the beginning happened from there. It doesn't mean that, you make mistakes. Actually, the matter is that do we learn from our mistakes? Or do we take them seriously? Do we take them as our experience of life? And I believe that thoroughly mistakes are real enjoyment. They are the pushes. They push you towards, this is what depends on you, whether you would like to be pushed or pulled. So we must take our mistakes as, a positive kind of energies, and we can definitely convert them.
When
And
I lived
wonderful.
sorry, when I lived in Germany, somebody said to me, when God wants to punish you, he gives you what you want, what you've asked for. That was interesting to me. It's like sometimes you think you want something, but actually you don't really want it, and you have to trust what comes, what life brings you. And yes, of course you have to want, but you also have to trust the universe. If you're open, the universe will be open. I mean, it sounds very crazy when you say that, but it's true. I've found that, when you're open to the world brings you good things. Just learn to take advantage of that.
Very true, very true. And it is really interesting as well, as you said that uh, many times, like, we think something else, but the God has, some other kind of destinies for us. And this is how, the nature plays its very, very interesting kind of role. Now, I just have interviewed many friends, many people like you from different continents in these days.
Mhm.
So I was just thinking about it that COVID-19 as a blessing disguise. See, many times we take it only as a curse. We take it just as a punishment. I
Mhm.
listen different kind of, you can say, uh, conspiracies or different kind of conspiracy theories that it is because of this, because of that. But as I am taking it, that I take it as a blessing disguise, because if I had not opportunity of this COVID-19 right now, uh, believe me that I'm that much busy that it's very hard to conduct couple of such interviews in a month. And this is, I get 25th interview within a month since I have started. So this is all about how do we take the things and then we proceed according to our own mindset and strategies. Very nice to hear, Nazish, that you told about the self-empowerment, that we all have different kind of things, how we can empower ourselves. The thing you talked about, that is very important to gather the people around you who at least, give you something positive. Now, when we talk about the positive, I am very happy to listen challenging criticism from you, that it is always welcome. It should be welcomed. But the criticism, as we know, that there's the one constructive criticism and other is destructive. The constructive criticism is to lead you, it is to construct you, while the destructive is always to pull you down, that no, whatever you are doing, you are not destined to be doing it, and you are not to be, doing it. And wonderfully, we feel very happy that, when we have such kind of people, whether it's a family partner, life partner, or, the people around us, friends around us who listen us, who become our own strength. This is all about our own empowerment. I want to listen your comments that how we can empower the people around us. Because see, the self growth is definitely, this is amazing thing. This is something we all try throughout our lives till we die. How do you see that how we can empower the people around us, especially in the context of women empowerment?
I think the most important thing is to mentor. I have a number of people. I give these speeches sometimes. People ask me. I've given speeches in universities and in schools and different places. Um, and I stay in touch with the, a number of students have stayed in touch with me, and they contact me regularly, like for career choices, for like, or even like recently last week, there was a woman who called me from France and said, I'm out of a job with COVID and something. Can you help me? And so I sent her CV to a couple of people, and she actually was a coincidence. She found a job. It was, just somebody was looking for exactly her profile. It doesn't always happen like that. But so I think mentoring is something that I've always tried to do. Is if somebody wants help, I will work with them. If I think sharing your contacts, your network, that's another thing. Sometimes people ask me, okay, can you put me in touch with somebody like that? You know, I always say, okay, I'll ask that person if they are willing to talk to you, and if they are, then fine, go ahead. But I think the biggest thing is listening to ideas, encouraging those ideas, making sure that, because when you start out, it's difficult. And you have those moments when you have a doubt, because you don't know if, there it's hard to start. And then there's different phases which are hard. It's kind of like when you start learning, when a baby's born, it's hard learning to crawl, and once you manage to crawl, then you have to learn how to stand up, and then that's hard, and then you pass that book, and then you have to learn how to walk. And so it always is, it's a wave. You plateau a little bit, and then you have another hill in front of you. It's like that. And in those moments, to help people to understand and bring their feet also on the ground, because we put so much pressure on ourselves. Our society, like when I started working, I'm that old, we didn't have email. So what used to happen, I started working when I was in Germany, first company that I was working for, and cosmetics, and they, I was an assistant to a marketing manager. I was a marketing assistant, and somebody would send me we would receive a fax, which I would then photocopy, give to everybody who was CC'd on it, go back, take their comments, make it into a compilation that somebody would validate, and then I would send it back. It took, I don't know, 3 days to respond to a fax. Today, if I don't answer my WhatsApp in 30 seconds after somebody sent it, they're like, what? You're not picking up the phone. And, and you're like, you're ignoring me. Don't, and I'm like, no, chill. I make time for everything. I get everything done, but I need some time for myself. So for whoever is starting in entrepreneurship, help them take time for themselves. If it's a young woman with kids, say, I'll take your kids for a day or a couple of hours. Give her time to breathe. Those are, I think we have to watch out. The way we're managing my company, I don't know if it's going to work or not, but the idea was that, let's, for example, we stop working Friday afternoon, or we have flexible hours for women who work, or men. If you want to work from home, you can work from home, and we try and work with those constraints. There are times when everybody's required to be at the job, but it doesn't matter if you come in at 10 and you leave at 3, as long as you're there for that block of time that you need to be, because flexible hours make a huge difference for a family. And traditionally companies haven't wanted to do that, but it doesn't, it's actually more efficient. I work, there's some things that I do better when I'm at the office, and there's some things like the thinking stuff is better when I'm in my room, in my home, in front of my computer, and nobody's knocking and bothering me. So that kind of flexibility, that kind of understanding, somebody, being kind to each other at work, realizing that there's pressure, but it has to be you're not going to kill somebody because of burnout. I mean, the amount of people who have had to deal with burnout and stress, that's very hard. So as a I work sometimes, I coach people sometimes. And how can you coach somebody? Somebody is like going through a burnout phase or a pre-burnout phase, and you're just telling them, chill, relax, blah blah blah, but the company's giving them more and more responsibility. That hasn't stopped. So the person actually starts feeling guilty. It's like, oh my God, the company is investing in this coach for me. They're trying to help me, and I still can't deal with everything that's going on. So it needs to be a balance. It needs to we need to find a way of doing business that is more balanced and in a healthy environment. So those are the kinds of things that I'm trying to put in place in my company right from the start. That we work with understanding and consideration for employees around. And I think that's something that I think we're going to have to move towards that, because the amount of people who are burning out, who are, it's terrible.
Wow, great, Nazish, and especially the one who understands the self growth, self empowerment, and definitely a struggle towards self empowerment definitely takes care of others. Among all beautiful things you share, that flexible working hours is really quite dear to my heart, because I feel that that is very important, because mostly I feel that the companies need to work on it, especially when it comes about the working women, because the women who are working, really it is too much for them. Once they are whatever they are doing out of home and then back home again, children and everything. And if you just do a little good by offering them flexible hours, I feel that that definitely can help
Also
them.
men, let me tell you, it's also true for men. Because if men can do stuff around the house if they have the flexible hours too. So it has to be a balance. I think it's good for the entire company. I
Very
think
true.
COVID has taught us that. Like I think it's Twitter. The company said that they're not going to go back to work the way they used to. They're not going back to offices. They're going to be working from homes. So that brings its own challenges. Working from home brings its own challenges, because you have to be able to separate at some point you have to be able to say, stop, my job is over, now I'm taking care of myself, I'm doing something else, and not be connected 24/7, because that's not healthy, not even for the company. Because you bring new ideas into the company when you have the opportunity to look around you. But if you've got your head in the computer 24/7, you're not going to be doing that.
Very much right. Very much. We all need our own personal time for the life, and especially when you talk about the mental health, we do need, to have the time management, so our brain can work efficiently. We can have the proper rest. We can have the time for the family. We can have the time for the friends. We can have time, especially for the social media, because nowadays that is so important. If
Mhm.
some, as you said, if you are not checking the messages, so the people think that might be you're ignoring. Wi-Fi keeps you connected, but doesn't mean that you're all the time checking the WhatsApp or Facebook. Right, Nazish, really very interesting and very happy to have you. Viewers, if you have any questions from Nazish, she is uh, an entrepreneur, a philanthropist. She's a business lady. Uh, she is working on women empowerment, a social worker. If you have any question, you may leave your questions in the comment box. We would try to come back and engage your questions and have the answers from Nazish. I again welcome you all, whoever are watching us from around the world, from different countries, and definitely those who will be watching us once we completed the recorded version. Now, this coming to the strength of a woman. What strength do you think a woman have, or a women should have?
I think when you're and women have been treated as second class citizens for a really long time. And when you're a second class, second, there was, I think it was it Hertz or Avis? One of them, the campaign was, we try harder because we're number two, right? So women are incredibly resilient. They've had to deal, they have had to deal with different things going on at the same time. So I think I think it's given us the empathy. It's given us, women listen to others more. Women are more creative traditionally. So there's a, I mean, I don't think that it's like one set of things for men and one set of things for women. It's not mutually exclusive. Men can be creative also, just as, but I think we have to learn to start taking, accepting the complementarity. But my sister and I, we've been working on workshops that we've been doing for female empowerment. She comes from the software field, which is very, very male dominated, and where there's a lot of abuse of women. And in a couple of years back, a couple of decades ago, women started entering the fields of computer technology. And today that stopped for two reasons. A, because men didn't stop harassing women, so that was really hard. And B, because so women stopped studying that and stopped going in that field. And B, because men were like, okay, the benefits of having a woman are outweighed by the fact that when she complains too much when we abuse her, right? You have like legal cases and stuff like that. So they stopped. So you see a trend in the technology sector where women had, during the boom of female empowerment a couple of 10, 20 years ago, women started entering, and then now it's decreasing again, unfortunately. So treat women with respect. I've had to deal with harassment at the workplace. I've had to deal with men treating me differently compared to other women. And I've been lucky because every time I've had a situation like this, I've been able to go to HR and they took care of the issue right away. But so many women don't. So many women go to HR and they have to deal with a toxic environment or leave the company. That you see people like Harvey Weinstein and things like that. Women who were powerful women who had to deal with sexual harassment. So that's an issue that I think needs to be addressed as well. You need to respect women. Men have to respect women in the workplace and behave. Because today the truth is, like, I think in the Fortune 500 companies, I don't think there's a lot of women who are up there. I think there's maybe a handful. So you make room. You have to empower women to get to the top. You have to make an environment that's comfortable for everyone. So the real issue that's blocking female empowerment is actually men, right? And it's not, and you have to be sensitive to these issues. So I think that's the first step, that men have to change and men have to be educated about the importance. I mean, a friend of mine over here does sexual harassment at the workplace courses, and one time I went to listen to her to see what she was doing. 100% of the participants of the workshop that she was holding were female, but they're not the ones who need education. The ones who need that is men. It should have been the other way around. Should have been 100% of men trying to figure out, hey, what am I doing wrong to make a whole part of the population feel uncomfortable. But men don't see it as their problem. They see it as, okay, women need to do it, but it needs to be a balanced effort of both.
Very much right, Nazish, and very, very solid point. And as you said, see, there is need to educate the males, and the time of education is not, I feel, once they have grown up, once they are mature, they are adult. But this thing starts from, as a child. Like when a boy is born, he needs to be treated, he needs to be trained, he needs to be facilitated, he needs to be guided properly from the beginning how to deal with his own sister, and then how to treat his mother. And then further on, this inculcation is needed from very much childhood. What is the role of women in society? How women should be treated equally? And then once that boy, that child is grown up, definitely I think we do not need any further workshop to tell them that what to do and how to treat a woman. But very sad and really sad prospect that we see all over the world that it's not being taken as seriously as it should be, but continuous talks. I believe in one thing as well, that see, as we are talking today, a few people are watching us. Definitely, a thing will be heard, a thing will be listened by a few, and further it can be. Many like us must be discussing it, and definitely this is how the evolution happens and something better happens in the society. Nazish, women is a symbol of beauty, always an attraction. God has created in such a way that I feel that, one side is the beauty of nature, other side there is a beauty of women. How do you see what is the true beauty in a woman? What do you call a true beauty in a woman?
Well, for me, I think beauty it's not restricted just to women, even though traditionally that's how it's been portrayed. You can find men beautiful also. So it depends on the perspective. But I think real beauty is about being um, good with yourself, about feeling good with your decisions. Some women feel more beautiful after they've had plastic surgery. Some people say, I don't need plastic surgery to feel beautiful. What's wrong with having plastic surgery? What's wrong with not having plastic surgery? We're different people, and what's right for one doesn't have to be right for the other. Um, and I think if you for me, a woman is beautiful or a man is beautiful. A person, a human being is beautiful when they're comfortable with their own inside their own skin, and in whatever way they are, whether they're working, whether they're not working, whether they have kids or whether they've decided not to have kids. There shouldn't be a rule. We shouldn't have to put people in boxes. Um, you know, the, I think there's a traditionally when I was little, the only dolls that you had were Barbie dolls, which were blonde and had impossibly long legs and huge breasts and that kind of a plastic face, and that was supposed to be the height of beauty. But my mother doesn't look like that, and she's for me the most beautiful woman in this world. So I think beauty is something that we've tried to to standardize again for something that's impossible to attain, and that creates its own stress. And you see in a lot of young girls the issues with anorexia and food related issues. So I think we even with beauty we need to be less judgmental and accept people for the for their for what they are. Like my company, we don't use we believe in a healthy beauty. We believe that when you're healthy, you're beautiful. It doesn't matter if you're tall or short or black or white or fat or thin. That doesn't matter. What matters is that you should be doing good for your soul, for your body, for your skin, for your hair, but that it should be coming from a desire of mental and physical health, emotional, mental, physical health. That's what we are. That's what me and my company we believe in terms of a vision of beauty.
Superb, superb. Now, this we knew a lot of information. We knew a lot of input about the women empowerment from you today. Now, coming to the side, women entrepreneurship. how do you see, because the women has came to business quite late, if
Mhm.
we see all over the world. So where do you see the women entrepreneurship right now?
I think it's better than it was 10 years ago, and 10 years ago it was better than it was 20 years ago. So overall, I think women are advancing. You know, when you think about it, I don't know I don't know the history of female empowerment in Pakistan, but like in France, I think it was in 1972, if I'm not mistaken, that women were allowed to sign a check. They couldn't sign a check. So how can you be a business owner if you're not allowed to sign a check? And that was in the 70s, which is not that long ago because I was born at that time, you know, it's 50 years ago. So so that is I think, you know, we've come a long way in that period as a society. But there's ways to go. We're still not at equal salaries for men and women. We still have that glass ceiling. We still judge women, like I said before, on what they've done, and men on what they might be able to do. You know, those things. We need to be we need to be constantly questioning ourselves, but we also need to look at how far we've come. It's not enough. We have a ways to go, but we've also achieved quite a bit. So we can stop for a moment and like think of all the positive things we've done, and then see, okay, this is what I need to do. So there have to be, again, depending on different countries, depending on different regions, there has to have to be policy changes. You have to have in France, we have Emmanuel Macron created a ministry for the equality of men and of women, for female, and you know, representing the interests of women. An entire minister's job and her cabinet is devoted to improving the state of women. So, which means that there have been laws that have been passed that, you know, companies that do not have equal salaries are punished, or that, you know, if there's any form of discrimination, that is taken very seriously. So I think policy changes in terms of legal the legal system, that is something that needs to be evaluated. And budgets, you know, so you can change things. You can like you can have you can say that I support the cause of domestic violence, right? The defending against domestic violence. But if you don't put the budget for helping those nonprofits that are dealing with the cause of domestic violence, then in effect you're not helping. So you have to change the policy, and you have to finance it so that it happens, and enforce it legally when people don't respect that policy. So that's a specific way of moving forward and implementing those changes. But it requires that people participate in government. Too much for too long, I see that people, when somebody is elected, he or she becomes the government, and then they're somebody else. They're not part of the society. It's the government. They're against us. You know, they're the ones who are doing bad. And you're like, no, government is made up of us. We are the government. We have elected these people. So we need to make sure that they're doing their jobs, and they're doing the jobs that we elected them to do. So we need them to, I don't know, put their money for this cause or that cause, you know, and female empowerment being one of them.
Very nice. Yes, very true, Nazish. Rafaela says the real beauty is the equality. Yes, Rafaela, we do agree with you. And just Nazish has just talked about it in quite detail that equality is the real beauty, and we all need to work on it. We all need to make the efforts for it so we can see the equal opportunities for the men and women. Nazish, in such times when we see the women entrepreneur, what challenges do you see the faced by the women entrepreneur in the current age, in the current times?
I think it's sometimes just exhausting because, you know, you're working in a system which is not made for you. So it's the challenges are that you face. it's oftentimes like, you need to be able to get a bank loan if you're an investor, if you need to find an investor. And traditionally investors are male, because they have a head start on women. And so the bulk of financial investors or people in banks making those decisions about investing are men. And they tend to invest more in male initiatives than in female ones. So for me, I think that's one of the biggest challenges is for a young entrepreneur who doesn't have money from family to be able to do something, is you need to have credit lines. You need to be able to um, have a cash flow, and for that, you as you grow, you need to have an investor. And so those things, that I think is fundamental, to create funds, investment funds, specifically to help women develop their businesses, or to have, I don't know if that's, I mean, again, I don't know how far one wants government interference in this, or intervention is a better word, is maybe require all funds to have an equal amount of investment in male female projects. I don't know. So those are things one would have to think of from a policy perspective. But I think people involved in public policy right now, they should think about these things, and people who are in corporate governance, they should be thinking about these things also, because it's not enough to say that that we believe in female empowerment, but then all the ads are young girls selling cosmetics and looking a certain way. You're not really empowering if you are treating women as objects that are props to sell. So if it's not enough to do a social media campaign saying all women are equal, but then you're not giving women equal chances within your company. So I think that kind of saying something but not acting on it needs to be called out.
Very much right. And that is very important because they say that action speaks louder than words. And we need to definitely do the implementation. Viewers, Nazish is with us. She's a philanthropist, entrepreneur, and working on women empowerment. If you have any questions, please do just share in the comment box. And those who will be watching us, recorded version as well, you may leave the question with the comment that we can try to get back to Nazish with your answers. And you can just subscribe our YouTube channel as well, so you can have all the future notification, including today's program and the future programs coming may be of your interest. Nazish, coming to one thing that they say, educate a women and a nation will be educated. That that much importance is given to the women. How do you see that women empowerment is more important than the man empowerment, especially when it comes about the entrepreneurship? Because majority of the companies are being observed run by the women. They are more successful. They are having uh, more benefits, they are having more profits, they are working even better than the companies run by a man. Even they are less in numbers, as you earlier said. How do you see that?
Um, Again, I think it shouldn't. It should. I think the question is about a balance, right? I think we are starting female-led companies, or women in business are starting out with a negative baggage. You're carrying a bigger load, and you're starting from way back. So but in the end, it comes down to consumers. A company survives because of the consumers. So when you're a consumer, you need to consume responsibly. if you say that you believe in female entrepreneurship, but you buy exclusively from male-owned companies, and you don't go that extra length to find out, okay, is this company more, does this company have values that I believe in? Well, then, I tend to do that. I tend to, if I'm buying something, I'll tend to see, okay, is this company treating its employees right? Is this company women-led? Is this company, so I tend to look at those things. And before I buy from somebody, my kids get mad because I'm always telling them, oh, I'm not paying for it if you buy it on this website or that website. And, you have to buy, or I tell them, we are not going to order books online from the big stores. We're going to go to the local bookstore here, and they will order for us. And it doesn't matter if you have to wait a day to get your book. That's okay. But we're supporting our local businesses. And so I think there's convenience of ordering from the big retailers online, and then there's taking care of the local businesses, and we need to have a balance. And today what's happened is that we have, because of convenience, we can order from our cell phones. We've tended to help the bigger companies, which started out with a head start, and most of them are male owned and male dominated, and frankly, in quite a few cases, abusive of their employees and not supportive of the system, right? And so if those people understand the value of money. So if their consumers stop buying because they want them to be more responsible in the way they treat their employees, then those companies will change, but they won't change otherwise. So it's up to us consumers to also, instead of just complaining, to be responsible and do our research and help those people that whose values we believe in.
Right, very true. We definitely need to do it as much we can do the justice. And definitely once we do it, so many others can do, and we can create such kind of environment. And the second good thing I really loved it, that we need to see the small businesses around us as well, because the big businesses have eaten up the small businesses here. And in especially such kind of times when the COVID-19 is going on, we need to think about many of the small businesses around us, that how we may be helpful towards them by buying, by doing the purchases from them. Now, just tell us about your own company, about your own business.
So my company is called Terre de Couleur. It's a French company for hair care products, and it was created 19 years ago. And I invested in the company. I'm a part owner, and it started out because the owner was interested in health, and he started working with an oncologist who was looking for products that were safe to use on women who are going through treatment, like heavy duty medical treatments, and they needed to have safe products to use. So it starts from there, but it's all about a healthy lifestyle, and really we try to be as almost 100% natural in the compositions, and but we have a special technology which allows us to be efficient, because sometimes natural products are not very efficient, right? So our products are clinically tested to be efficient and natural, and like for hair loss, for hair color, we go from the lightest blonde to dark brown, and all of it is plant-based. And we have clay treatments for hair. We have clinical tests showing that if the pollution that we breathe, that we ingest because of food that we eat, that's sometimes polluted, it becomes heavy metals that are deposited in our hair bulb. And with our products, you can clean out that hair bulb, which protects against hair loss. So those kinds of things, so we really push the healthy side. And we know that chemical hair color causes cancer, as much in the hairdressers as much in the women. So we worked on creating a line of hair color which is not 100% plant-based and doesn't do that. So that's been the idea of the company. But in terms of the vision, we're working on becoming zero waste. So looking for partners to help us recycle our bottles, looking for solutions that make our everything that can be recycled and recyclable and biodegradable, we are doing. Our objective is within 3 to 5 years to be 100% zero waste at a company level. All our hair color is zero waste already. So these are things that we're working, that are important for the company.
Great. And we can say that your company's uniqueness is this, that you're dealing with the organic products. So they
It's
are not harmful to the
Yes,
people's skin.
yes, our products are ethically sourced and they're ethically harvested, and we focus on natural organic products, but also efficiency. So sometimes you'll see natural products and it says natural, but it's not really natural. But we are really natural. When we say we are 99.3% natural, it means that everything has been tested and certified to be that way. And but the big difference compared to other organic companies is that we actually have test results, independent clinical tests that show that our products are efficient as well. Because sometimes you have the chemical products which are efficient, but the natural products are not really. People say things, but they don't do things. And people want a healthy alternative to organic, efficient products, and that's our difference.
Well, that's great. It's really wonderful. Nazish, before we just wind up today's interview, I would like to have a message for the people of the world, because we have already talked a lot about the women empowerment, women entrepreneurship. I want a message for the people of the world, for the youth of the world, from your side, whatever you like to have a message.
Wow, that's a big one. You didn't prepare me for this. So anyway, so so the message I would give is, I think, treat other people as you want to be treated. I think we need, as a society, to start coming together. We need to start looking at what is common amongst us and not the differences. We need to, instead of saying he's Indian or he's a Jew or he's Muslim or he's whatever, let's start looking at what brings us together. Forget boundaries and the, frontiers and things that we artificially create in our minds to make ourselves different. I think whatever God you believe in, it's the same one, and He created all of us. And so he's not he the same way I have two children, I don't love one of them more than the other. They're very different, but I don't love one of them more than the other, and I respect their differences. Same way I think we can look at the population of this world, humans in this world, and really define what it means to be human, and think that God has, I don't know, maybe it's a he's a she, I don't know, but he that he loves his children differently, but the same way. He doesn't love one person more than the other. So I think that's let's be kind to ourselves, and let's be kind to people around us.
Really very strong message, and definitely uh, the creator himself, or whatever, as you said, itself is very beautiful. So he has created the beautiful nature, he has created beautiful world, and we all are different flavors, we all are different fragrances, and definitely we need to love each other, we need to take care of each other. Viewers, with us today, our guest is Nazish. She is Pakistani, and right now she has lived in different other countries, as she just told. I can't. Initially, I was saying to you Pakistani American, but I don't know. I have to call you Pakistani French or Pakistani Brazilian, whatsoever. But really amazing and quite motivating, inspirational personality. A wonderful lady, full of wisdom, full of experiences, full of courage, full of confidence, and full of motivation for the others. She talked today a lot about the women empowerment, what is women empowerment, how women can be empowered, and how, as a male, it is the duty of every society to empower its own women because empowering women is not kind of any kind of damage or any kind of threat to the manpower. It is something, a game of balancing, and wherever there is balance, there is happiness. Wherever there is balance, there is health. Wherever there is balance, there is satisfaction. Wherever there is balance, there is, just amazing kind of journey you can enjoy with. And Nazish also talked about the entrepreneurship. She talked about the women entrepreneurship and how it is improving. She herself is a wonderful entrepreneur. She's doing a lot of work. She's a working lady, also a working mother, a working wife. And she talked about it as well that how everything can be managed if we are really willing to manage it, if we are really willing to do it. Nazish, thank you very much. I would love to request you for the future as well that we definitely need some other sessions of such type as well on different kind of topics. We would love to listen to you again very soon. Thank you very much for joining us for a detailed kind of session. We really loved it.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye. Please stay with me, viewers. Thank you very much. We are ending the broadcast and looking forward to see you again tomorrow with another show. Please continue your comments. Keep sharing the video of Nazish in all groups so more people can watch it, comment it, and if they have the question, they can ask. Thank you very much to you all.
Bye bye.